we get started if you guys are ready? Jonathan, Logan, we all good? Everyone in?
Yes.
All right, can we bring up the first item on the agenda? Or I guess it's accessibility notes. All right, notice of non-discrimination. You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status or background. And guidelines, I'm sure everyone's familiar with this. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. Please do not unmute and mute yourself. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call participants. If you're on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact Sandy Johnson via the chat box at sjohnson, JOHN, STON@ctps.org or 857-702-3710. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, Level AA standards, and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, please contact Sandy Johnson, MPO staff at SJOHNSTON@ctps.org or 857-702-3710. All right, we're on to introduction. So welcome everyone to the Boston MPO meeting this morning. Jonathan, you want to read the roll, please?
Sure. Mass DOT Chair.
Steve Wolfel, Representative Secretary and CEO of MassDOT, Jamie Tesler.
Mass DOT C2.
Good morning, John Bishad, representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Thank you. Mass DOT Highway Division.
John Romano here.
Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority.
Gillian Linnell, representing General Manager Steve Poftak.
Thank you. Massachusetts Port Authority.
Oh, I got it.
Hi, this is Sarah Lee for Massport.
Thank you. Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Good morning. This is Eric Barrasso with MAPC.
MBTA Advisory Board.
Good morning, Brian Kane, MBTA Advisory Board, present.
Regional Transportation Advisory Council.
Hello, Leonard Diggins from the Advisory Council representing the MBTA Rider Oversight Committee. Thank you.
City of Boston, Boston Transportation Department.
Bill Conroy, representing Mayor Michelle Wu in the City of Boston.
City of Boston, BPDA.
Hi, Jim Fitzgerald with BPDA representing Mayor Wu in City of Boston.
At-large city, City of Everett.
Jay Monty representing Mayor DeMaria in the City of Everett.
At-large city, City of Newton.
David Kozas representing Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller in the City of Newton.
At-large town, Town of Arlington.
Daniel Amstutz, Town of Arlington, representing Select Board Chair Len Diggins in the Town of Arlington.
At-large town, Town of Brookline.
Todd Crane, representing Select Board Chair Heather Hamilton in the Town of Brookline.
Intercore Committee, City of Somerville.
Good morning, Tom Bent, City of Somerville, representing Mayor Katiana Ballantyne in the Intercore.
Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
I am not seeing Austin.
Okay, thank you. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham.
Not seeing Dennis Giambetti.
North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Hi, this is Darlene Nguyen from City of Beverly, representing the North Shore Task Force.
North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington.
It looks like Melissa might be having some microphone issues.
Okay, I can come back. South Shore Coalition, Town of Rockland.
Jennifer Constable, Town of Rockland for the South Shore Coalition.
Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Medway.
Not seeing Peter Pellets here.
And at Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood, Neponset River Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Not seeing Tom O'Rourke.
Yeah, I believe Steve Olenoff is here for Tom O'Rourke.
Steve Olenoff representing the Trick Subregion.
I'll go to our ex officio members and then go back. Federal Highway Administration.
Good morning, Ken Miller, Federal Highway.
And Federal Transit Administration. Should be Leah Sermon. Yeah.
Morning, Leah Sermon.
And I'll go back. North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington.
Looks like she's unmuting, but it seems to have some mic issues.
Okay, I see her in the list, so I'll mark her as here and we'll see if that continues. The calls roll, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the chair's report, which I believe I don't have one. So let's go right to agenda item 3, the executive director's report. Tegan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have and welcome everybody this morning. I have a relatively brief chair's report today. First of all, I just want to remind all of you here that we do have jobs posted ongoing for a new manager of the Transportation Improvement Program, and then also a senior transportation planner position. So as I always ask, and I'll continue to ask, please help us spread the word on those positions and help us get good applicants. We have one highlight around engagement to share with you. I wanted to thank the MPO members who participated in the member vision and goals workshop that was on July 7th. It was a really excellent conversation. And on Wednesday, Michelle Scott sent out a survey to all of you to include the questions that were discussed at the workshop, so that if you weren't able to come, or if you did attend and you'd like to provide more input, please do take a look at that survey from Michelle. And we've asked for you to complete it by Friday, August 5th. Hopefully someone will put the survey link in the chat for you. If not, I can do it after I finish talking. And always, if you have questions, contact Michelle Scott. She's at MSCOTT. Today's I'll mention for today's agenda items. The highlight is that we will ask you to vote to release for a 21-day public review period the federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP. And we will also ask for you to vote to release for the same review period the amendment, kind of the key amendment making adjustments to the federal fiscal year 2022 UPWP. And then we have a few other amendments that we'll ask you to vote to release related to the public engagement plan, and we'll ask you to endorse the 6th amendment to the current TIP. So a lot of votes there. And then we will also have a presentation from Rebecca Morgan from staff to talk about the MPO's application for a Safe Streets and Roads for All discretionary grant, which is due in December. And I've given you a bit of a highlight on that in the past, but she'll get into it in a little bit more detail today. And then the next MPO meeting is scheduled for August 4th. And at a minimum, we'll have some work scopes to discuss and a vote to endorse Amendment 7 to the current TIP, but more to come on that agenda when we have that more finalized. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm always happy to answer questions. And that's all from me.
All right, anyone have any questions for Tegan? All right. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which is public comments. Agenda item 4. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the MPO today? Looks like I have 2 people from Bedford. So Ms. Haskell, I think you want to go first?
Yes, hi, my name's Molly Haskell. I live in Bedford, and I'm here to urge the Boston MPO to remove the Minuteman Bikeway extension from the tip schedule. This 1.7 mile project adds a 1.3 mile paved stub to the Minuteman Bikeway. Concord has voted against paving or connecting, and the pavement will not go any further. At best, this adds 60 or so parking spaces and costs $11 million with nearly negligible enhancements to regional transportation. The extra parking could accommodate commuters to drive in from points distant and then bike down to the Minuteman to points towards Boston. But that's available right now at the Minuteman terminus, and it's seldom full during commuting hours. For far less than $11 million, the parking at the Minuteman terminus could be expanded and would have a much greater return on the dollar in terms of enhancing regional transportation. The bikeway extension has become a deeply divisive issue in Bedford. The town has voted down the eminent domain for the project, and opposition is mounting. Commuters use the unpaved trail now. After paving, incremental commuter use will be minimal at best. In the end, a commuter bikeway is for the young, the fit, the strong, for people who gotta be somewhere on time. The current reformatory branch trail is a shaded path and is used daily by the very young, the old, families, people with pets, the able and the less able. And they use it primarily because they feel safe there. If you remove this project from the tip schedule, a much loved natural resource can be preserved and a much smarter solution can be built to enhance transportation, and you won't need a whopping $11 million to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Minuchin. I don't know if I said that right, but.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. David Minuchin. I'm the Director of Public Works in Bedford. As you are all probably aware, the current amendment has removed the Minuteman Bikeway extension because we have not completed the right-of-way acquisition. On its meeting on May 9th, the Bedford Select Board voted unanimously to revisit approval and has set it as a warrant article for our fall town meeting in November. We're continuing to work closely with Mass DOT as well as setting up meetings with residents to move the project forward. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to town staff, and thank you for your ongoing consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address the MPO today? All right, I do not see any more. So with that, let's move on to agenda item 5. Committee chairs reports. Are there any committee chairs, which I think Derek's first up for the UPWPA? So let's go to Derek and then I'll ask if there's any other chair reports. Go ahead, Derek.
All right, thank you. So just very briefly, I just wanted to note that the UPWP committee met this morning and voted to approve the draft federal fiscal year 2023 Unified Planning Work Program, which will be voted on by the full MPO later on in this meeting, as well as voted to approve the federal fiscal year 2022 Unified Planning Work Program amendment. So just wanted to say that both of those items have the UPWP committee's endorsement. Thank you.
All right, so I won't take any questions, Derek, because we'll be taking that up in a little while. So any other chairs have reports? Okay, not seeing any. I will move on to agenda item 6, which is a report out from the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. Leonard, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week we had a meeting and our guest was Ken Miller from our board here, and it was on the coming up with ideas for building out our pipeline of projects, and it was very much worth the wait. Ken had some good ideas, and as I said in my appreciation response to Ken, I really hope that this is the beginning of the conversation, not only with the advisory council, but also with the board. And so thanks again to Ken. And we also had a visit from in our previous chair, and our current executive director of the CTPS, Tagan, to talk with us briefly about an item that's going to be on the agenda today, safe streets and roads for all. Because of that presentation or that discussion, preliminary discussion, we are going to have a meeting in August. Normally, the advisory council takes August off and just does a field trip, but we will be meeting the second Wednesday in August, August 10th, to discuss safe streets and roads for all, and probably in our letter, which will be our comment letter for the draft UPWP. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, any questions for Leonard? Seeing none, thank you, Leonard. All right, we'll move into our first action item, agenda item 7. It's the Federal Fiscal Year 2023 Unified Planning Work Program. And I'll turn it over to staff. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next slide, please. So good morning, everyone. I am here to request the MPO release the draft Federal Fiscal Year 2023 Unified Planning Work Program for a 21-day public comment period, following the UPWP Committee's vote this morning to move this draft to the MPO board. This year, the UPWP has programmed approximately $8.1 million over 14 projects and 19 programs, including 6 discrete studies. I would like to clarify a budget number that was discussed at the committee meeting this morning. The budget for the Advisory Council for Federal Fiscal Year 2023 was reported as $18,000, but is actually $35,000. This discussion led us to discover a couple discrepancies in some of the budget tables, which we will correct along with any other inconsistencies we find during the public comment period. So the 6 discrete studies that we have chosen to fund this year are as follows: updating the bicycle pedestrian count database at $80,000, flexible fixed route bus service at $20,000, the transit modernization program at $37,500, the lab and municipal parking study at $80,000, learning from roadway pricing experiences at $45,000, and sustainability and decarbonization in the freight and logistics sector in the North Suffolk area, $67,500. Next slide, please. So as a result of the bipartisan infrastructure law, this UPWP has programmed an increased amount of funding in accordance with revised federal emphasis areas. And overall, you might notice there's about a 17% increase in funding in this year's UPWP. This UPWP has additionally reorganized work around these revised emphasis areas, which has resulted in increased funding for ongoing programs. So a couple of those examples are the support to the MPO line. Last year it was funded at $240,000, and this year it's funded at about $355,000. The MPO resiliency program funded at $11,000. In the 2022 UPWP is funded at about $44,000 this year. And freight planning support, funded at $65,000 last year, is funded at about $93,000 this year. So with these increases in funding for ongoing programs, the budget for discrete studies are about level funded as compared to federal fiscal year 2022 at $330,000. Next slide, please. Additionally, in this UPWP, we have developed a couple new programs. One such is the data program, which has incorporated existing data line items such as transit and traffic data requests and the data resources line item previously found in Chapter 6 into one centralized program to handle all data requests and continued support and development of data needs within the agency. Another program new to the UPWP this year is the Multimodal Mobility Infrastructure Program. This program houses recurring corridor studies, the low-cost improvements to express highway bottlenecks, addressing safety, mobility, and access on sub-regional priority roadways, the Intersection Improvement Program, and safety and operations analyses at selected intersections. This program will continue to conduct the same kind of work that had previously been completed with each of these programs, but it will allow the MPO to be more responsive to the needs of municipalities and adjust funding needs as priorities evolve. We have also made some modifications to how we account for work. In this UPWP, you will see that the provision of materials in accessible formats line item has been rolled into the larger graphics line item. Additionally, there are separate budgets starting this year for the editorial and communications and engagement groups. Overall, the theme of this UPWP centers on agility, ensuring that staff and the MPO have the ability to respond quickly to changing priorities and needs, both in terms of the work being done and in terms of the funding for said work. Next slide, please. We began outreach for this UPWP last fall with sub-regional outreach and a public-facing survey, as well as conversations with the Advisory Council and MAPC and a staff survey. In the beginning of this year, we began developing a universe of proposed studies, arriving at a list of 12 studies from about 76 ideas that we've received overall. Through extensive communication with the UPWP committee and with staff, we arrived at 6 discrete studies to be funded this year. Full descriptions of the studies that were chosen can be found in Chapter 4, and the universe of proposed studies can be found in Appendix C of the UPWP. Next slide, please. So with guidance and support from the UPWP committee, we're excited to present this year's Unified Planning Work Program, and we request that the board vote to release it for a 21-day public comment period. Thank you so much, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Rilaka. First, can I get a motion, a second, and then I'll open up to questions. This would be to send the UPWP federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP out for 21-day public comment. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to send the UPWP federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP for a 21-day public comment period.
All right, thanks, Eric. Tom?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to second that motion to send the UPWP out for a 21-day public comment period.
All right, anyone have any questions? Leonard, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions, just I'd like to congratulate Shalika on her first UPWP. I think she did a great job. And I know she got a lot of support from Sandy and other members of the staff. And we really appreciate her work with the Advisory Council. And I think she also got a taste of just how intense some of us on the UPWP committee are passionate about the UPWP and do our homework, and like to prepare. So thank you, Shalika, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Leonard, for that. For her. All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? All right. I don't see any more. Jonathan, you want to read the roll, please?
Sure. Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
Looks like John Bouchard may have dropped off.
okay. John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Jillian Linnell,
Jillian Linnell, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Brian Kane, yes.
Leonard Diggins,
Leonard Diggins, yes.
Bill Conroy,
Bill Conroy, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald,
Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Daniel Amstutz,
Daniel Amstutz, yes.
Todd Corain,
Todd Corain, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
I understand Dennis Giambetti has joined us as of 10:11. Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Melissa Tentarkelis,
I'm seeing Melissa, but she's not unmuting currently.
okay. Jennifer Constable,
Jennifer Constable, yes.
Peter Pelletier. I'm sorry, he's
Not
here.
seeing Peter Pelletier.
And Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sri Laka, and congratulations on your first UPWP. We'll move on to the next action item, which is action item 8, which is Amendment 2 to the Federal Fiscal Year 2022 UPWP. Jonathan, I believe you're handling this? Looks
Yes, I
like.
am. Yes, I am, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you, everyone. So good morning. This is to amend the UPWP. This is to be the second amendment of the FY 2022 UPWP. To give everyone some background, the MPO follows procedures specified in the MPO's public engagement plan and as received from Federal Highway Administration by Mass DOT and the MPO for amendments to the UPWP that defined significant changes requiring federal approval, including the following: addition or deletion of a UPWP task or subtask, major changes to UPWP task descriptions, activities, and other information, funding increase above the originally approved UPWP overall budget, funding transfers between tasks equal to or greater than 25% of the UPWP task budget, or funding increase or decrease equal to or greater than 25% of the UPWP task budget. So each year, MPO staff performs a thorough assessment of the spending patterns in the first 3 quarters of the federal fiscal year, as well as fourth quarter needs to propose UPWP budget adjustments to the final quarter. The primary reasons for the amendment at this time is we've had staff attrition, and we've been recruiting and training new staff over the last few months, which has caused changes to the budgets, as well as an evolution of project and inline line item needs. Next slide, please. So I'll go through each of the line items today to show you where the increases and the decreases will be. The first one is in the TIP. We are proposing an $80,000 reduction in the TIP budget, primarily because work on the TIP database that was projected to be done throughout the year, as well as the public-facing interactive application, has been delayed due to limited staff resources. We will be putting these efforts in for the federal fiscal year 2023 TIP, but for this year, we don't have the staff capacity at the moment. For the performance-based planning and programming, this budget is proposed to be reduced by $41,000. And the reason being is that staff attrition and changes in staff responsibilities to other projects have required that reduction. For the public participation process, we are proposing a $30,000 reduction in that budget, primarily due to the fact we've had staff attrition and we've had a gap in bringing on new staff earlier this year, which have since been rehired, and the budget that was proposed at the beginning of the year will not be as needed for the rest of the year. For the regional transit service planning technical support, we are following up on one project that could be done in Sudbury, but that's the only request that we've had at this time. So we are proposing a $28,000 reduction to that budget, given that we haven't had as many requests for that technical support as required for this year. Next slide, please. I think we went one too many. Oh, no, I'm sorry. For the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, we are proposing a $20,000 reduction. We are really for the gap in staff capacity where we had a staff person who was paid at a higher rate. But we are continuing to support RTAC in its full capacity with the staff that we have. We suspect that next year we will have an additional, we have the similar budget, but we will be meeting the needs of RTAC as needed while we are in the process of replacing the person who was operating RTAC before. For the Transportation Equity Program, we are proposing a reduction of $14,000 due to the fact that the MPO's Title VI report was postponed from FY 2023, rather to FY 2023 in coordination with Mass DOT. Also, some of the transportation equity staff time was redirected to the discrete study identifying transportation inequities in the Boston region. For addressing safety, mobility, and access to subregional priority roadways for FY 2022, we are proposing a $10,000 reduction, as this is the remainder of this project will be moved to FY 2023 to finalize the report and then present to the MPO at that time. For the COVID-19 recovery research and technical assistance, we're proposing a $10,000 reduction. At this time, we have no research topics or technical assistant needs identified for this, so we are eliminating this budget line item. Next slide, please. For the staff-generated research and technical assistance, we are proposing a $9,000 reduction in this budget item because only one study was funded where we expected two. So we are reducing that budget accordingly. For the priority corridors from the long-range transportation plans needs assessment for 2022, we are proposing a $5,000 reduction in this budget to because those will be moved to the FY 2023 to finalize those reports and present to the MPO. For safety and operations analyses of selected intersections in FY 2022, again, we're proposing a reduction here of $2,500 so that because these will be moved to FY 2023 to finalize the reports and to present to the MPO at that time. Now we're looking at cost increases going forward to the budget. For the UPWP, we are proposing a $9,000 increase to the budget, primarily because of staff training for the new project manager, as well as knowledge transfer from the previous manager to assist with that training. Next slide, please. For the bicycle and pedestrian support activities, we are proposing a $10,000 increase in that budget line item. The reason being is that the additional late year work for the Blue Hills Trail Crossing Study required additional budget, and we are funding that accordingly. For the long range transportation plan, we are proposing a $33,000 increase to that line item, as this is a plan year. We will be doing additional staff training as well as knowledge transfer for outgoing project manager Ann McGann and working with Michelle Scott going forward. For the low cost improvements to express highway bottlenecks, we are proposing an $11,000 increase to this budget line item. Reason being is that we are restoring the budget to its original scoped amount, which under COVID-19 was reduced in federal fiscal year 2021. For the MPO's resiliency program, excuse me, we are proposing a $17,000 increase due to the fact that we are building capacity to address the new federal emphasis areas outlined in the bipartisan infrastructure law, as well as the addition of the new staff person who was hired to work on resiliency going forward. Excuse me. For the priority corridors from the LRTP needs assessment for FY 2021, we are proposing a $18,000 increase here to restore that to the budgeted, original budget amount prior to its reduction in 2021 due to COVID. Next slide, please. And these are the last few projects on this for this amendment. For the support to the MPO and its committees, we are proposing a $23,500 increase in that budget line item for additional funds for operations plan support to the A&F committee to help assist the Transportation Policy Task Force, which is a group that determines needed additional strategy, research and analysis of MPO related policy. And to assist with work that has already begun and will be forthcoming for the federal fiscal, for the 2022 federal certification review. Finally, in that line item, we also include additional support for the MPO graphics program, provision of materials in accessible formats, and assistance to the transit working group, transportation demand management, and freight planning support. For the computer resources management, this budget line item is being increased by $27,000 to increase additional staff time to support computer-related, resource-related projects, including our server. For the addressing safety, mobility, and access on sub-regional priority roadways for fiscal year 2021, we are proposing a budget increase of $30,000 to restore the budget to its original scoped amount and before it was reduced in 2021. For the intersection improvement program, we are proposing a $30,000 increase in that budget line item, again, to restore the budget to its original scoped amount, which was reduced in 2021 due to COVID. Finally, for the regional model enhancement, we are proposing a $40,000 increase to that budget line item to assist with additional work to implement and validate the new travel demand model, TDM 23, to support the 2023 LRTP. Next slide, please. So the MPO staff has brought this to the UPWP committee, who has voted to approve the release of the 21-day public review period for this amendment 2. We are bringing this now to the MPO to ask for that formal vote for the 21-day public comment release vote. This will be started within the coming days, and the anticipated endorsement date for this amendment would be at the MPO's August 18th, 2022 meeting. And with that, Mr. Chair, I turn it back to you for questions and to hopefully get a vote.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Can I get a motion, a second, to approve Amendment 2 for the federal fiscal year 2022 UPWP, and then I'll open up for questions. Steve and then Eric. Steve, go ahead.
So moved.
Eric,
I will second that motion. Thank you.
all right, with that, any questions?
We lost you, Steve. You went on mute.
I didn't do it, I swear to God. Eric had his hand up, but it's down now. Anyone have any questions? All right, Jonathan, please read the roll.
Certainly. Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Jillian Linnell,
Jillian Linnell, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Brian Kane, yes.
Leonard Diggins,
Leonard Diggins, yes.
Bill Conroy,
Bill Conroy, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald,
Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kosis, yes.
Daniel Amstutz,
Daniel Amstutz, yes.
Todd Corain,
Todd Corain, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Melissa Tentaklis,
Melissa was able to unmute, but unfortunately we still can't hear her.
okay, thank you. Jennifer Constable,
Jennifer Constable, yes.
and Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
I'll try Melissa Tentaklis one more time to see if maybe she can, if we can hear her to get her vote.
She just gave a thumbs up, Jonathan, so.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right.
Thank you. That's unanimous for all, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 9. It's also an action item, public engagement plan amendment. Stella Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Today, I am requesting that the board vote to release for a 45-day public comment period an amendment to the public engagement plan, which brings the plan in line with updates to the public engagement process in the federal fiscal year's 2023 UPWP. Go to the next slide, please. So the federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP includes a change from previous years to the procedures regarding amendments and administrative modifications. Unlike other certification documents, the MPO is not federally required to release UPWP amendments for a 21-day public comment period, although this has been our standard practice in the past. With guidance from the UPWP committee and Mass.OTP, the federal fiscal year 2023 UPWP provides the option for a 21-day public comment period on UPWP amendments to be waived at the recommendation of the UPWP committee and the discretion of the MPO board. All UPWP amendments and administrative modifications will still be presented to the board for a vote, and interested parties will have the opportunity to provide feedback on proposed amendments during committee and MPO board meetings. If the board does vote to release an amendment for the 21-day public comment period, public notification will follow the same process used for TIP amendments. So the amendments to the public engagement plan, which specifically refer to Chapter 4, Section 4.3 that I'm asking you to approve for release today, reflect those updates to the UPWP amendment procedure, but they do not alter any other elements of the public engagement process for the UPWP and other certification documents, nor do they conflict with the spirit of equitable and accessible public engagement opportunities in the MPO's work. Rather, these changes provide greater flexibility for members and staff when making relatively minor changes to UPWP. So again, I'm requesting that you vote today to release the amended PEP for a 45-day public comment period. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Stella. So can I get a motion and a second to approve this amendment to go for public comment? Eric and then Daniel.
I'll make a motion to approve this public comment, public engagement modification and send it. Yeah, I'll make an amendment to approve it.
All right, Daniel.
Daniel Amstutz, I'll second the motion.
All right, any questions for Stella? Steve?
So we're changing the name from public participation process to, the plan to public engagement plan. So is this the first time we're actually officially making this name change? And if so, shouldn't we be saying that here and explaining why?
Okay, does someone from staff want to answer? Jonathan, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, when we voted the public participation plan last October, we had a comment at the time that encouraged us to change the name to Public Engagement Plan, and the MPO took a vote at that time to do so. So since that time, we retitled it as Public Engagement Plan, and we have been using that title ever since that time.
All right, you good, Steve?
Good, thank you.
All right, anyone else have any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, Jonathan, you want to read the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Steve Woeful,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Jillian Linnell,
Jillian Linnell, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Brian Kane, yes.
Leonard Diggins,
Leonard Diggins, yes.
Bill Conroy,
Yes.
Jim Fitzgerald,
Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Daniel Amstutz,
Daniel Amstutz, yes.
Todd Corain,
Todd Corain, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen votes yes.
Melissa Tentaklis,
Can you hear me now?
yes,
Yes, we can, Melissa.
Okay, yes, Melissa Contalcos, yes.
thank you. Jennifer Constable,
Jennifer Constable, yes.
and Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Motion carries unanimous, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Stella. We'll move on to agenda item 10, which is also an action item, and the last one for today. It's federal fiscal year 2022 to 2026 TIP Amendment 6. Jonathan, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Thank you, everyone. As was voted out at the June 16th MPO meeting, this was the 6th amendment to the FFY 2022 to 26 TIP. And for that amendment, we had a change to the regional target program, which proposed to remove project number 607738, the Bedford Minuteman Bikeway extension from Loomis Street to Concord Road, Route 62. There was also a cost increase for project 608443, the Littleton Air intersection improvements on Route 2A at Willow Road and Bruce Street. We also had additional changes to the statewide highway program, which saw a cost increase for project 608495, Concord Lexington Lincoln's project for the resurfacing and related work on Route 2A. Next slide, please. Finally, for the FFY 2022 transit program, Amendment 6 proposed the removal of project RTD 0011487 MWRTA's, the Metro West Regional Transit Authority's Vehicle Replacement 1 E2 with options. Finally, there was a change of funding source for project RTD 0010209, again for the Metro West Regional Transit Authority, for the acquisition of bus support equipment and facilities. Next slide, please. These tables show the changes in the amounts, which are the same tables that you saw at the June 16th meeting. You can see where the Bedford removal removes $11 million from our target funds, where we had an extensive discussion about that, how to fill that gap. And if you recall, we had our adjustment at the last meeting for adjustment 4 to replace that 11 million with the transfer of the Neponset River Greenway in Boston from statewide bicycle and pedestrian to regional target funds. Thank you. Again, these show the two cost increases by $509,000 for the Littleton Air and the Concord Lexington Lincoln by $1.4 million. Next slide, please. And again, this shows the vehicle replacements and the acquisition of bus facilities. We're proposing to take the $60,000 to remove for the vehicle removal of project for vehicle replacement with MWRTA and put that into the acquisition of bus support equipment and facilities, which changes it with the funding source. Next slide, please. So just to remind everyone, the comment period for this amendment closed on July 13th at 5 o'clock. During that time, we had one comment that was received. This comment was received from, it was a petition from 189 concerned Massachusetts citizens who were submitting a letter on behalf of the TIP Amendment 6. This was to express the disapproval of the paving of the Reformatory Branch Trail in Bedford, which was part of the Minuteman Bikeway extension. We heard a public comment similar to this earlier today. And the proposal was to remove the project from the TIP until a solution could be talked about regarding the pavement or to keep it unpaved and go from there. We've also heard from the town itself that there is additional right-of-way acquisition, which will be going to the board again. So proposal to keep Amendment 6 as proposed and released for public review would remain. And at this time, I would ask the MPO to vote to endorse Amendment 6 going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Can I get a motion and a second to endorse Amendment 6? Brian, did you have your hand raised? Nope. Eric?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to endorse Amendment 6.
Darlene?
Hi, I was just raising my hand to vote.
Oh,
Do you need a second?
Yeah, we need
Okay,
a
I'll
second.
second.
All right, thanks, Darlene. All right, are there any comments or questions anyone has? Or people just raising hands to vote? So, Steve, you have a question and Brian has a question. All right, Steve and then Brian.
So we just received comments from 189 people. And I think they probably just sent them the usual canned response, which is, you know, thanks for commenting and, you know, we'll take this all into consideration. But in the spirit of the public engagement process, which we just put out for review, shouldn't we really be answering some of these things? This is the third path that we've had, which has been controversial, and we've gotten lots of comments, both for and against the project. But the MPO has never discussed any of this or really responded to some of these people. Now, I know it's difficult because a lot of people are going to be unhappy if a whole lot of people are in favor of it and a lot of people are not. You know, you're going to make someone unhappy no matter what you have to say. But in the spirit of the public engagement, I think we should really respond. You know, obviously, I'm in favor of the amendment, and obviously, it's clear, if it hasn't been said, that the MPO favors bike paths. And this is the third one we've had, and no one's really said that. And I think, don't we think it's time that we actually clearly responded to these people, in this case, 109 people, and I'm not even sure, when these things come up, I'm not sure what's going on here. Is this just what you would call NIMBYs, not in my backyard? Is that typically what's happening on these things? So no matter what is done, there's going to be, these people are not going to be satisfied, or is there really something in the process with MassDOT and the proponent, in this case, Bedford, that it wasn't good communication, or the people just don't understand the benefits of bike paths? But what's happening here, and what should be our response?
So before I call on Brian, and Dan, it looks like you have a question too. I mean, Steve, I think this MPO has shown a lot of support for bike paths. I think this is partly the development of a lot of these paths happens at the community level. And for whatever reason, there's been some issues there. I know, obviously, the town of Bedford said this morning that they're going to revisit this. We couldn't move forward with this now because the eminent domain didn't go forward. But they're planning on talking about it together as a community in the fall. So I think this specific case will have plenty to talk about in the fall when the town and other concerned folks come back to the MPO with comments. So I can't explain to the bigger part what's happening, Steve. I don't know if anyone, John, did you want to jump in and answer on this before I go to, or Brian, do you want to talk first? Or Brian, why don't you go, and then Daniel, and then John, okay?
And I would, a part of this is a question, isn't there an important grade crossing here of a roadway which is heavily traveled, and the people saying that people are using this now, and isn't that an important part of this project to make that safe? So I wait the answer. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. John, I'm assuming John will touch on some of that stuff. All right, so Brian, Daniel, and John.
Thank you, Steve. Let me see if I can provide some background here. I want folks to note the time that Brian Kane is supporting a bike path project. This is probably my first my first time, but the reason is because I've spoken to town officials. I've spoken to the select board. Select board is unanimously opposed to this amendment and is unanimously in support of moving forward with the bike path as originally authorized. The town of Bedford has been supporting this for 15 years. What I understand happened is that at the town's last open town meeting, a significant number of people that, shall we say, don't usually participate in the process, but were very vehemently anti-government, anti-select board for the town of Bedford, anti-administration for the town of Bedford, anti-school committee for the town of Bedford, anti-school superintendent for the town of Bedford, et cetera. And this is my understanding, showed up an incredibly vocal minority and attempted to really throw a proverbial monkey wrench in the works. I don't believe that represents the sentiments of the vast majority of the town of Bedford. I certainly know that doesn't represent the interests of the select board of the town of Bedford, who are elected to represent those folks. In a very unusual move, I am suggesting today that we actually reject this amendment, that we give the town time to go back. They have a special town meeting coming up, I believe in September, October, to consider this. There is a widespread belief amongst the elected officials of Bedford that at that town meeting, the necessary actions will be taken to allow this to move forward. And so based on all of that, I think this is just a very highly unusual set of circumstances. And while I am certainly not a traditional friend of bike paths in general, I think at this point we should give the city, the town of Bedford, the time it needs to take the procedural actions that it assures me they can take and get done. And I think we should give the town the benefit of the doubt on this one. And so I'm suggesting that we reject this amendment at this time today, and give the town the time they need to get it done. And then we can come back to it. If it fails again, then we will know that the town has actually spoken and that a representative sample of the citizens of the town have actually showed up and voted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my remarks.
All right, thank you, Brian. Daniel, John, and Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. I appreciate Brian's sort of laying out some of the things that seem to occur over the last several months within the town. I think, well, first of all, I'll say that the town of Arlington is definitely supportive of this and of a connection extending the Minuteman Bikeway, which is an extremely important asset for Arlington and for Lexington and Bedford. I think there's just an important piece of this is that it's not simply upgrading and making a more accessible trail from the former Tory branch, but there's also a gap between the end of the bikeway and the beginning of the other trail along, I guess it's Railroad Avenue, that I believe would be also significantly upgraded to make it much safer for people to be able to bike or walk between those two discontinuous segments. So there's another piece of this that's not simply just about the trail. I mean, regarding Brian's suggestion of rejecting this, I think and I won't get to my actual question, which is why I raised my hand, but I think we've already taken some action previously to in the last meeting in order to sort of reorient those funds. And I believe these funds are for FY22. So trying to keep them with Bedford when they won't have their special town meeting until the fall simply isn't logistically, or process-wide really workable, I think, at this point. And either John or Jonathan might point that out also. My question is really more, are we okay, my question is the intention this will stay on the universe of projects for the next TIP cycle in spring, see what happens with special town meeting in the fall and continued support from the town? Is that kind of the intent, that hopefully we'd be able to put this on to next year?
Jonathan, you want to answer that? Jonathan, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I just want to make clear to everyone that the reason that the project is proposed for removal is that it will not be advertised within federal fiscal year 2022 due to the fact that the right-of-way will not be acquired in time, and the town will have its town meeting after the start of federal fiscal year 2023. So that is the prime reason that we're proposing to remove the project from the FY22 TIP. That said, this would stay in the universe of projects. If the town were to have, based on the outcome of the town meeting that would be held this September, that would be then brought back to the MPO for consideration, should it be successful, to be put back into the TIP. If that would be, and again, depending on the element, whether that's the fiscal year 23 or 24 or 25, whatever element it is, that would be at the time for the MPO to vote where that would be and where that would go and what projects may or may not need to be adjusted in order to accommodate that. I just wanted to clarify that this project is not being removed because 189 people have asked for it to be removed and we're complying with that. It's being removed because it will not be ready this federal fiscal year due to the right-of-way concerns. This comment just happened to come in and be the only one that we received during the comment period for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jonathan. John, and then Eric. Daniel, actually, sorry, were you done, Daniel, or did that address? All right, good. All right, John, and then Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comments, Jonathan addressed most of what I was going to say. I wasn't going to specifically discuss the project elements because the town has worked collaboratively with our district team and our internal HQ team on finishing the design. I wanted to comment on the right-of-way piece, and I don't want to ignore 189 signatures that in a petition that may be against the project, but the town is successfully developed the design and needs to take the project to town meeting to acquire the property. And if they do that, I believe the town, including these 189 signatories, will participate and vote yay or nay in the acquisition of the property. And that's why the project stands where it is. And as I said, Jonathan really clarified that we're not, it's not that MassDOT and the MPO is not in favor of the project. It's that it's not going to make it in this federal fiscal year. And so we're making adjustments to the STIP to accommodate, and we're still working collaboratively with the town on the acquisition of the property this fall. And if that is successful, then we will work with the town and the MPO on finding a suitable programming year where we can move this project forward and get it out into construction.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Ron. Eric?
Yeah, thank you. And I want to, thank you, Jonathan Church, for that clarification. Thank you, John Bouchard. And I also want to thank Brian Kane, one, for his support of a bike path project, and also, his sentiment there and wanting, clarifying, I think, what happened and emphasizing the support from the town. It is my understanding that, we need to take this action, because if we leave those funds programmed for the project, and it will not be advertised, we potentially will lose those funds. And I apologize, I'm in the shadows here. My camera does not like the room that I'm in, a little backlit. But that's why I feel like we do need to take this action, otherwise we jeopardize losing those funds. And so while I certainly support this project, and MPC is committed to working to fund this project in future federal fiscal years, I do feel like we need to take this action today so that we do not jeopardize losing these funds in federal fiscal year 22. But again, that being said, very committed to this project and looking forward to working with MassDOT and the MPO to fund it in a future federal fiscal year.
All right, thanks, Eric. Ken?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. One, what happens in 2022 with this now about a $10 million gap in 2022? I mean, what is happening? And if the MPO does support this project, why wouldn't you just flip it into 2023 now? I know it, we're going to have a new TIP in place, and then move whatever you were going to do. I guess that's my question. How are you going to fill the gap in 2022 if this, presuming this project can't go? Secondly, to Steve's point, I do appreciate what Brian said about that background. I think that was very helpful. But I think to Steve's point, I think the MPO probably has an obligation to really try to understand the issues. Not only that some people are for it and some people are against it, but I took a look at the comment letter. I just have a question. What do they mean? Is it about 4.3 acres of trees? I don't know if that's accurate or not. I know, but I think it might be helpful to just get a sort of a presentation. I'm not sure by whom, whether it's MassDOT, the town, or staff. Exactly what is this project about, and what are the benefits and maybe the disbenefits also. Thank you.
Jonathan?
Yes, Mr. Miller, we voted at the MPO meeting, at the last MPO meeting on the 7th, to move via the TIP adjustment for the Boston to Ponset River Greenway project to fill the gap in the regional target funds from the statewide bicycle and pedestrian funds. And that was done at the last meeting.
So just so I understand, you took on another state project?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and in terms of the other one, Ken, I mean, you've had a long history with MPO like a lot of us. So obviously, as the town works through its issues, I'm sure we'll be hearing from both sides again, and we obviously encourage that. So I think we need to let them figure out some stuff on their end and then come back to us as both groups to talk through it with us. So. Ken, you're muted if you're talking. I think you are talking, so.
Thank you. I just think Yes, that's great, Steve. I understand that, but I think it might be also good to just have a little bit of background about what the project is about so that we can then evaluate, what we're hearing from, proponents and opponents. Thank you.
Yeah, we can, I think we'll all talk at staff, and if people want that, we can certainly do that kind of update and ask them to come in and present at a meeting before when they think it's most appropriate. Brian?
Thank you, Steve. I guess I'm just curious what our options are here. I mean, this is clearly something I think that we voted on the 7th with incorrect or incomplete information. And I think it's a disservice if we move this forward today. So I, for one, am not necessarily very comfortable with taking this out and moving forward on a bunch of state projects, especially when the elected officials of the town are unanimous in their support of it. So could we table this? Could we do something else with this? Could we vote this down? Can someone please tell me what my options are here? Thank you.
I mean, go ahead, Eric.
If we don't take this action, we lose the funds, correct? That's my understanding, because
Yeah,
we would then have to program, then have to reopen up federal fiscal year 23, which we've already, we would then have to bump projects. It creates a domino effect of issues. I guess, Brian, I totally agree. I feel confident. I really do feel confident that we're going to fit this in a future federal fiscal year. I don't think we're going to figure that out today, but I feel confident that if the town takes this action in November and secures all the right of way, we will then work with them for the development of the next tip, and either in the MPO's target funds or in the statewide program, that we'll figure out how to fit this in. But I fear, I'm just running off of the assumption that if we leave these funds in, we lose them.
All right, thanks, Eric. Steve, and then Jim Fitzgerald.
Yeah, so maybe we can do what we did previously when we had a similar kind of thing come up a few meetings back. We made a resolution that we couldn't put it in that current year or at that time. So maybe we should do the same thing, is just make a resolution that we support the project, and we hope that the issues will be resolved between the town and residents of the town, and that this project will move forward.
Jim?
Yeah, I agree with Steve. Just signaling some way publicly to acknowledge that we continue to support the project, and hoping if things could get resolved effectively, that we would be supportive of putting it back in, because I guess we probably should have taken a harder look at, in addition to removing it from this fiscal year, trying to find a spot for it in a future year. It all kind of the same move, because then, perception is important. Those that are opposed, will see that it's removed and not really programmed in any other future year. Even though, so I guess it's like something like what Steve said, just that we can acknowledge that we support the project should the town be able to resolve these issues. I think we'll maybe solve it.
Thanks, Jim. Before I go to you, Brian, let me just say a few things. One, that, we obviously we don't always have perfect information when we have to take these actions, but it's our responsibility to act. And clearly, we've already taken actions to fill this gap so the money doesn't get stranded and have to go to other MPOs or the statewide list. So I think that in terms of, I don't ever remember us doing a resolution. Maybe David was chairing that meeting and I wasn't there, but I think it's pretty clear we've long supported this project, and we're hearing that in the public record today that members are supportive of it. So I don't know if there's a specific resolution needed, as much as I think it's pretty clear we all support it, and we've supported by programming the tip for a number of years. So, I think we need to take this action now, and then obviously the MPO is going to want to work with the town and other stakeholders to see where we can land this back on. So that's where my head is at. Brian?
I guess I respectfully disagree, and why can't we vote this down and move 11 million from 22 to 23?
Can't, and to Eric's point, if you try to move this to 2023, you're going to have to bump out other projects who are not aware that they're being bumped and not giving them the same opportunity, Brian, you're asking Bedford to have. So we can't just move this into 2023 because we're going to have impacts throughout the rest of the TIP years. So, that's unless we're ready to do that now, but I would argue we aren't, because we're not giving other communities who have projects in our program and the opportunity to speak on behalf of their projects.
Well, we clearly made changes to put projects into 22. I'll bet you some of them came from 23. So I don't think it's that hard. And I guess I'm just really worried that if we vote this down today, if we adopt this amendment, the anti-government people that showed up in Bedford, the 189 concerned citizens for whomever, are going to be emboldened and say, look, they don't even like it. They don't support it. Vote it down again. And so at the very least, I think we need a resolution, and I still think this should be rejected today.
Eric?
I would support a resolution. I would support anything to put it on the record that the MPO supports this and wants to is committing to working to fund it in the future federal fiscal year. To Steve's point, I think if we were to put this into federal fiscal year 23 or 24, we would have to start to bump other projects out. And again, that creates this cascade effect. We would then arguably we would have to give, do another public comment period for that. I think it's very challenging to do that at this stage, at this point. Again, MAPC very committed to this project. In my experience, I have never seen a project that is essentially 100% designed, not get fit in somewhere. So I'm confident that we're going to figure this out. And if that means, taking a vote to show that commitment, I would support that. But I feel like at this stage, we can't keep it in 2022 because we will lose those funds.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this? Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify that what we did for the adjustment at the last MPO meeting did not move any projects from later fiscal years into FY22. We took an existing statewide project in FY22 and transferred the funding source from statewide bicycle and pedestrian program funds to the MPO's regional target fund to fill the gap. Thank you.
All right. So no one has anything else to comment on. I think I'll call the question, and then depending on what happens, if there is a need for folks to do a resolution, then we can try to go ahead and do that. Eric, do you have one more question, or do you? Eric?
So yeah, I just have a process question. So Steve, you'd like us to take a vote on this now, and then if folks want to make a motion to have some type of a resolution afterwards, you'd like to take?
Well, we already have a motion second, so we have to deal with that, the current motion on the floor. And then depending what happens, we can then go ahead and, take a vote to signal the MPO support if there's enough, let that fall as it may.
Okay.
All right, Brian, did you have?
So I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the original motion to approve to include a resolution of support for the project from the Boston MPO and urge the town of Bedford to just know that we are in favor of it. If the original, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
No, I was going to say, Brian, I was just trying to figure out who made the original motion in a second so we can ask them.
I think it was Eric.
Eric, you made the original?
I did, and I would accept a friendly amendment to include a resolution that the Boston MPO supports the Minuteman Bikeway Extension Project and is committed to working with the town to fund it in a future federal fiscal year.
All right. Who was the second, Jonathan? Do you remember?
Darlene Nguyen was the second.
Darlene, are you supportive of the friendly amendment?
I am, yes.
All right, so with that newly constituted motion second, including the MPO signaling its support for the Bedford project. Any more questions or comments from anyone? All right, seeing none, Jonathan, please read the roll.
Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Jillian Linnell,
Jillian Linnell, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Brian Kane,
Brian Kane, yes.
Leonard Diggins,
Leonard Diggins, yes.
Bill Conroy,
Bill Conroy, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald,
Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty,
Hey, Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Daniel Amstutz,
Daniel Amstutz, yes.
Todd Corain,
Todd Corain, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Dennis Jean Betty,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Melissa Tentaklis,
Melissa Tentaklis, yes.
Jennifer Constable,
Jennifer,
What did you give me?
I think she said yes, but it came, okay, thank you. And Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Motion carries unanimous, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, everyone. So I think what we did just now, obviously we passed that, but obviously we have in the record that the MPO supports this project. So I don't know if it's a resolution per se, but we've clearly signaled that in the amended motion and second. So, and obviously we look forward to hearing from both sides in the near future as the town continues to try to figure out how to advance this project and our role in it. So thank you all for that. Thank you, Jonathan. So we'll move on to agenda item 11, which is a presentation on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application program. It's Rebecca Morgan Baduna. I just want to let folks know I actually have to jump off and head to another meeting. So Eric will finish chairing the meeting. So everyone, thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I am Rebecca Morgan, the Director of Projects and Partnerships for the Boston Region MPO staff. In this presentation, I'll be sharing about our proposed Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application and the benefits that it can bring to our region. Next slide, please. The Safe Streets and Roads for All grant has been established as part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, also known as Infrastructure Investment and Job Act, or IIJA. It supports the National Roadway Safety Strategy and goal of 0 deaths and serious injuries on our nation's roadways. The way that the US DOT describes this grant is that it's a roadway safety program with a strong equity component. Next slide, please. This program is deeply appropriate for the MPO and is an area that the MPO cares about. It's also consistent with the MPO's mission. Safety is one of the major goals identified as part of the LRTP Destination 2040, which includes some of the following objectives: reducing the number and severity of crashes and safety incidents for all modes, and reducing serious injuries and fatalities for transportation. Transportation equity is another major goal, with objectives such as prioritizing MPO investments that benefit equity populations and promoting investments that are accessible to all people regardless of ability. It is also very much a part of the work that the MPO is already engaged in, including performance-based planning and programming. The MPO has adopted roadway safety performance targets to meet federal performance requirements annually since 2018. These performance targets relate to fatalities and serious injuries, including those pertaining to non-motorized users. The MPO's most recent performance targets were adopted in February of 2022. As part of this program, staff engage in similar activities to work required as part of this safety action plan grant, for example, developing targets on reduction of fatalities and serious injuries, gathering data to analyze trends, and monitoring report performance outcomes. This is an area that we continue to expand upon under this program. Next slide, please. This map shows us crashes that resulted in fatalities on our region streets and roads between 2016 and 2020. As you can see, this is not just an inner core issue, it's a problem throughout our region and a problem that we want to solve. Next slide, please. The Safe Streets and Roads for All grant is an opportunity to access funds to help us solve this problem. The grant funding supports local initiatives to prevent fatalities and serious injuries on roads and states, commonly referred to Vision Zero or Towards Zero Death initiatives. There's a $5 billion in appropriated funds for the next 5 years, with up to $1 billion for this year. Those eligible for the grant include MPOs, political subdivisions of the state, tribal governments, and multi-jurisdictional groups. One thing worth noting here is that state DOTs are not eligible to apply for this grant. Next slide, please. There are two grant types being offered. There's an action plan grant and an implementation grant. The action plan grant is focused on developing a comprehensive safety action plan and also a space for supplemental action plans for those who may already have an action plan. The implementation grant funds are to implement projects or strategies identified in an existing action plan, and they also allow for conducting planning and design work as well. In order to access implementation funds, a safety action plan is required. Next slide, please. Since the MPO does not have an existing action plan, the MPO would apply for an action plan grant to develop a regional comprehensive safety action plan. MPO staff and MAPC are planning to apply jointly on behalf of the MPO. MAPC is the fiduciary agent for MPO staff and therefore the entity that would apply on behalf of the MPO. MPO and MAPC staff are closely coordinated on this application and plan to continue to work together if we are awarded these funds. Developing a safety action plan will allow for access to implementation funds in future years in our region. Next slide, please. MPOs are eligible for up to $5 million to develop a comprehensive safety action plan. There is a 20% minimum local match required, which can include in-kind contributions or funding from non-federal sources. Next slide, please. We are committed to working collaboratively on this initiative. We have been coordinating with our partner agencies and other groups and committees to get the word out that we're planning to apply for this grant, and also to gauge interest in engaging in a joint application or partnership on this grant. We have been coordinating with Mass DOT on this application and have been using their available tools and data such as the impact portal to help us plan for this work. We will continue to coordinate with them on the development of the plan, ensuring that it's consistent with the strategic highway safety plan that is currently under development and planned to be complete by the end of the calendar year. We understand that the MPO, we also understand that other MPOs in Massachusetts are considering this grant application as well. We plan to talk with them further about their plans and hope to develop something that will be helpful for them as well. Also cities and towns, we've been reaching out to them through meetings, emails, and other forums like the Inner Core Committee, for example. We recognize that some cities and towns who have a Vision Zero plan may be considering applying for implementation funds, and that there are others who are perhaps considering applying for action plan grant. We're interested in coordinating with cities and towns on these efforts to work toward our common goal of safer streets, and believe that through coordination, we have a stronger chance to bring this grant funding to our region. We have also been in touch with the Massachusetts Vision Zero Coalition, and we'll be joining their coalition meeting next week to discuss this grant opportunity and how we can best collaborate with them on this work. Next slide, please. I'm going to give a brief overview of the Safety Action Plan process and the MPO's role in that process. A core element of the process is leadership commitment. In this case, a resolution from the MPO board with a stated publicly available commitment towards zero fatalities and serious injuries, or a significant reduction in fatalities and serious injuries by a target date with the eventual goal of zero deaths and serious injuries. In terms of the planning structure, we would establish a task force charged with oversight of the action plan development, implementation, and monitoring to ensure that the stated goals are being met. The task force will have a representation from the region, including municipalities representing the various geographical areas of the region, including developing and developed suburban communities, regional urban centers, and intercore communities, as well as representatives from advocacy and community groups, underserved communities, public health, and vulnerable roadway users, including persons with disabilities, youth, and older adults. The planning process will include goal setting and a safety analysis with equity considerations, such as which groups are more disproportionately impacted by crashes under the current roadway networks, and the locations of higher risk corridors. It will also include a robust engagement strategy with emphasis on underserved populations. Based on the data and analysis, a comprehensive set of projects and strategies that will address the identified safety problems will be developed, as well as the identification of policies and process changes needed for implementation. Next slide, please. Just to reiterate, the role of the MPO board will include the leadership commitment and the establishment of goals. Next slide, please. Desired outcomes include the adopted plan with safety goals and timelines, and the identification of strategies, programs, projects, and policies required to reach these goals. The development of these strategies, projects, and programs will allow us to be eligible for implementation funds that will help us to get to our shared goal of safer, more equitable streets. Next slide, please. The Safe Streets and Roads for All grant is an excellent opportunity to bring funds into our region for this extremely important issue and problem that we know that we face. By developing the regional action plan, we will strengthen municipalities' ability to apply for implementation funds in future years, and ultimately it will help us to get to our main goal of safer, more equitable streets for all. Next slide, please. So we are in the process of developing the scope and budget for this application and plan to present application materials to the board for approval on August 18th. The application deadline is September 15th. I have included my email address here, so please do feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you'd like to talk further about our approach, or if you're interested in partnering with us. And if we have time, I welcome questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Jay, Monty.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Rebecca, for the presentation. So I think from a city and town perspective, our understanding has been this grant program is, these implementation funds are not eligible funds, for state highway agencies like MassDOT. These are intended for cities and towns. So could you just clarify, why is the MPO taking this? It sounds like you're applying for an action plan grant that is, I'm not sure, is it regional or is it, I guess I'm a little confused on what you're actually applying for here. And that's question one. And the second, I guess, question or thought I would just share is that, the goals of this program largely align with MassDOT's Complete Streets program. And so we've been trying to figure out, how do we, with sort of the least amount of effort, take our Complete Streets prioritization plan, update that, and make that a suitable Safe Streets for All plan that would kind of speed things up and allow us to get to the implementation funds quicker. So if you just add any thoughts, or if anyone from MassDOT wants to speak to that as well, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. It's a good question. I think we are planning on developing, or the proposal is to develop a regional safety action plan that would kind of encompass the entire region. Our understanding through conversations with USDOT is that they're really promoting kind of collaborative efforts here and are looking for the MPOs to actually apply so that we could cover, a larger geographical area. And so the idea would be that we would, I think, work with cities and towns on this effort to make sure that we're covering the various communities that we have in this region. And this effort would allow for cities and towns to then apply for implementation grants, and they can do that independently, or they could do that kind of jointly with the MPO. So it's really allowing, I think, for our region to have more access to these funds, in addition to the inner core, some of the other communities as well.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rebecca. And just to put a finer point on that, Jay, I think the thinking here is, one, not only would this, help advance more safety planning, at the regional level as well as local level, and sort of identify the most effective policies, programs, infrastructure improvements. But by documenting all that in a regional plan, it is the conduit by which individual municipalities could apply for funding for that second phase that Rebecca mentioned. This is the planning. The second one would be the implementation dollars. Cities and towns can apply directly, for those implementation dollars if they also have done a plan. To answer your question, I don't know about retrofitting like the complete streets plan, if that's something that that's doable, if that meets the requirements. I don't
But should we as cities and towns be still pursuing our own action plans, or is this meant to sort of cover everybody under one umbrella?
I think our sense is that I think our sense, Rebecca, correct, is that federal DOT is more interested in funding a single regional application than a series of individual municipal ones. But I don't think this prevents any cities and towns from applying, but we want folks to be aware of what we're doing now, in case folks are, don't want to invest the energy into applying, given that the MPO's intention of doing this. Let me call on Ken Miller from Federal Highway if he has more clarifications on some of these things. Ken?
Thank you, Eric. Yes, I think what you said is entirely correct. We are encouraging regional entities to apply. We think it allows better coordination. There are 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Just from a logistics point of view, we wouldn't be able to process all of these folks being direct recipients. So we are encouraging regional entities to apply. But also, like Eric said, that does not preclude you from applying also. But we are encouraging regional entities to apply. I would ask a question that maybe I should know this. I should check with our headquarters, but Eric and Rebecca, have you had conversations where it's absolutely clear that if the MPO does have a plan, that individual cities and towns within the region would be eligible for implementation, or is that something that we need to, I could follow up, but is that something, did you get direct, clear guidance on that, or is that something that we still need to confirm?
Yeah, I think the one thing that needs to be confirmed is whether or not we'd have to submit a joint application in order for cities and towns to apply. So we could submit a joint application with the MPO and the city and town that are looking for implementation grant. That's certainly an option. I would want to confirm with USDOT that would be, they could apply independent of the MPO before giving a certain answer. It's my understanding, based on the materials that I've seen, that is the case, but I'd want to confirm that.
Well, I am, Federal Highway is administering this program, so if you do have questions, perhaps we can chat at some other time.
Am I correct in saying that implementation funds are available this year potentially? Is that true?
Yes.
They are.
Yes, but you need to have a comprehensive safety plan in place to access implementation funds. I am not, and you raised a good, I am not exactly clear what constitutes a comprehensive safety plan. I guess that's probably your next question. But if you do have one, you are eligible to apply for implementation funds.
Right. I think it's where it would be helpful if maybe some folks from MassDOT can add some thought to this, where you know, cities and towns have sort of been doing a lot of this work already through the complete streets plans. You know, we've looked into this, and we're working with some of our consultants now, and we don't think it's a big leap to go from complete streets to safe streets for all. I mean, there's some differences, but by and large, a lot of the work has been done. And so from our view, if it's a choice between, you know, waiting a year or two for a regional plan, or, you know, sort of cannibalizing our complete streets plan, getting it in and getting funding this year, potentially, we're going to do the latter. So just something to think about, and something I think for other cities who I'm sure having the same thoughts, to have a little more information from MassDOT and or from FHWA. Are we going down a blind path, or are we just being, you know, resourceful?
Thank you, Jay. So I think there are, and I'll call on Jim in a minute, but you know, I know the city of Boston, they have done a comprehensive safety plan. My understanding is they're going to be looking to apply for implementation funds. I think the city of Cambridge might be doing the same, that have done this. If you feel that, you know, you guys can augment what you already have to be eligible for implementation funds, and other municipalities can do that, that's great. This action plan would not be competing with that, because this is the first step. This is doing the regional planning. There are many municipalities in the region that haven't done that, and this would, again, you know, create the conduit to be able to then apply for funds in the future. I think getting a better guidance and clarity on Ken's question, would that have to be done through the MPO, or could individual cities and towns do that directly? We'll work to get an answer to that question. Let me go to Melissa Tentakoulis.
Hi there. I guess, I mean, I'm getting some of my answers through with people's questions, but for, you know, a community such as Burlington, we're working on, you know, we have some projects in mind. We do not have an action plan. So I don't understand how the MPO's action plan or money for action plan will be as detailed as needed, or is that where the partnership happens so that you can kind of get to the implementation for a community? And then that's one question. And then the other one is, would it be worth working with like a regional coalition? I'm thinking of like Middlesex 3 that works with a bunch of communities for the transportation piece. So can anyone answer those things?
Yeah, I would say in terms of, you know, applying for regional action plan, and where there's cities and towns that have, you know, done a lot of work in this space. We're planning to have a task force that would include representation from representatives from these cities and towns, and so that can be captured as part of the action plan that is prepared regionally. And also, I think, draw upon some of those kind of some of those strategies that have already been developed and implement that kind of more widely in the region. So if there's, for example, low cost safety improvements that have already been thought about for a certain kind of city and town, that could be kind of described, and then there's actually they allow for implementation funds to take the regional plan and then do a supplemental. So if there's more specific like location information for, say, cities and towns that haven't yet identified the specific locations, they can include that as part of the implementation grant application. So I'd say part of how we're thinking about this is through the task force and making sure to really engage the municipalities and do that in partnership. And so I think that was your first question, to make sure that what you've already done gets captured kind of as part of this plan, and that it also will benefit some of the other cities and towns in the region.
Okay. And Rebecca, the task force is established and you're the point person on it?
No, that if we receive the funds, we would establish the task force. So we're having conversations now to kind of get the word out that we're planning to apply for the grant, to have these kinds of conversations to make sure that, you know, we're kind of clear on kind of the cities and towns' role and expectations. And if we receive these funds, we would immediately look to kind of develop that task force. We were also planning on bringing a consulting firm to kind of work with us on this. So it wouldn't be just, you know, the MPO staff, but it would be consultant team working with us on kind of developing that task force, working on kind of a robust engagement process, and to help us kind of streamline this so that we can develop an action plan in a faster paced time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. Let me go to Daniel, and then I'll go to Jim, and then Sarah Raposa and Jason Amon. So Daniel.
Thanks, Eric. I've gone to a number of the webinars that Federal Highway has put on or USDOT has put on about this, so I'm fairly familiar with some of the requirements of it, and I think, you know, this idea of sort of Vision Zero is something that's a high priority in our transportation plan that we completed last year, so we're very interested in being part of this. But based on the requirements and sort of metrics that USDOT is looking at for the plan, for doing a plan, I'm highly doubtful that just the town by itself would be able to get a grant in order to do this. So I think, you know, this is a great idea or avenue that we can use in order to again try to address some of the things that are within our own goals within the town and own vision that we probably wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So I think that's part of the reason we you know, I definitely support this. I think that I'll point out that from what I've gathered from the information from USDOT is that if you're applying as like a joint applicant, that's different from being a partner to an application. If you're a joint applicant, you can't apply for any other grants, like you can only be jointly with one. But if you're a partner, you're sort of like supporting another application, and that's different. So I think that should be something that people should be aware of if other communities are planning to apply for like implementation funds or action planning, you know, planning grants, that I think if you're joint with the MPO, you may not be able to apply separately. I think Melissa got a good question about sort of the specificity or the detail on some of the sort of a big regional plan. It's like, how do you apply that to the individual communities that may have very hyper specific or hyper local issues? And, you know, I think that's an important consideration when coming up with the scope of this and how do you sort of balance that. But then my question is, since there is a match to this, I wonder what's the intention or what's the thought about how that would be matched, how that funding would be matched, and sort of how much of this would go to a consultant versus maybe MPO staff or something along those lines. So I'm just sort of curious if that's been given any thought.
Yeah, we've had some conversations with Mass DOT about this, and for the application, we do not need the commitment. It's if we receive the funds, at that point, we need a written commitment that we have a 20% match. We've had some conversation, and MassDOT's kind of supporting us, you know, applying. But there's also the in-kind contributions as well that can be considered. So that's something that we're working out, but we'll have time to kind of do that over the next month or two as we're kind of pulling the materials together. And the actual commitment, it would be required once you receive the award. We wouldn't need to show that commitment at this stage, but it is something that we're working on, kind of the details of. And in terms of your second question, we're in the process of developing the scope and budget now. So prior to the August 18th meeting, we'll plan to submit some materials for review, which will include that breakdown to kind of see what percentage of MPO staff will be involved and what percentage we're thinking about bringing consultant team in to support this effort.
Okay, thank you.
You know, Daniel,
Yeah.
just to find what we don't have a commitment from MassDOT to support for the match right now, but they're very supportive of us applying for this. So we're working with them right now, and
Okay.
then I think we do envision this as being, like a consultant team playing a big role, as we discussed at the interview.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jim Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, my understanding is that you can submit if you have an existing, safety or Vision Zero action plan like we do, that you could submit it for confirmation, to the feds, and then that allows you to, start applying directly. So we obviously are considering that as the city of Boston and looking for potential projects to submit for actual funding. But that being said, I certainly support this kind of regional action plan as it gives opportunity for other cities and towns to access grants for actual implementation of projects. So,
Thanks, Jim. Sarah Raposa.
Sarah Raposa, town planner in Medfield. Two of my questions have been answered, but a third question, when you are putting the proposal together, you're including all towns, and then if you get the award, then you'll reach out further for direct participation from the towns. I'm phrasing that in the form of a question.
Yes, so we're planning on including kind of the proposal basically to develop a comprehensive safety action plan for the region, which would include all the cities and towns within the Boston Region MPO. And then as a follow-up, if we receive that award, we would be reaching out for the task force. We'll probably have some conversation ahead of time as well, just to kind of gauge interest, who's the point of contact, so that we're ready to kind of hit the ground running if we do receive that award. But yeah, that's the correct kind of process that we have in mind.
Sarah, did she freeze? I hope we answered that question. We can come back if she. Let me go to Jason in town of Dedham.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me on here. Just a couple questions, couple comments. Do we know of the limit available to action plan applications? I've heard various things. One of them just being $1 million at the maximum. Do we have an idea of what that maximum is?
Yeah, the maximum for the MPO is $5 million. So it depends if you're a city or town or the MPO applying. So we have up to 5 million. And my understanding is that of the $1 billion that this year, they're planning on 40% of those funds being allocated to action plans and 60% to implementation grants.
All right, thank you. The town of Dedham was already in the process of doing a comprehensive safety plan before this Safe Streets for All grant came out, and we were ready to local fund and do all sorts of things, and we kind of reprioritize, knowing that there's a potential to get the grant here. Dedham may be unlike, maybe very like a lot of other communities where, just recently for us, we've had a lot of fatalities on, a combination of highway roads and local roads, and the select board is very, in tune with the residents that are complaining about safety improvements. And so that's why the comprehensive safety plan came to fruition, where we're trying to look at something more detailed to Dedham's needs and understandings. And, realizing that the MPO is going to be doing this, we would certainly, if this wasn't ever a thought, Dedham would most likely be a participant as part of the MPO. But we just don't want to, we're afraid that we're going to be shut out because of the MPO's potential submission, because we don't think, just my opinion, I don't think it would be as detailed as if the town did it specifically for the town of Dedham, and being able to do future implementation applications as well, geared specifically to Dedham, and things that may not register if you looked at a whole region. So I would like the MPO to consider those type of things where, Dedham, to make sure that we're included but not tied to it, or if you leave us out, the ability to get in should we not get a grant application funded, because we definitely want something to happen for the town of Dedham, but we're more apt to stay focused on Dedham at this time to try to get more for us, not to be selfish, but just to stay focused because we have been looking at this for quite a bit of time. So it's a consideration thing. And maybe with FHWA listening, I know New England is set up a little bit differently as far as, towns and cities, where other states around the nation are townships and counties. So they're more broader based, and you're going to get more applications as such, where, we're just not that type of way in the New England area. We're more, we should be more regional, but more often than not, we're not. And we kind of go after these things individually. So I'm just, trying to look for a common ground between the local towns and cities that want to do it and the regional entities. So those local towns and cities don't get kind of stamped out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Absolutely. We hear that. We want to figure out how to make that coordination. And so that's a big part of what we're thinking about. Melissa.
I guess I just wanted to kind of reinforce what Jason said. That makes a lot of sense to me. Each community is probably kind of looking at, their unmet transportation needs and how they could, address that through this program. And I also do want folks on that, on our board here, MPO, to think about not recreating the wheel and not spending a lot of money and time, doing work where we might have, resources and have priorities through, other setup programs, So I guess I'm thinking how we can use what we already have and some of the things that we've already prioritized for a lot of the communities, so that we're not spending a lot of time and money just to do some administration of it, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Melissa. Ken Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important to stress that we are encouraging regional applications. Again, we don't want anybody to not apply. If you think you have a good project or a proposal for a plan, to develop a plan, please apply. But just do want to point out there is $1 billion. This is an annual program. So it's $5 billion over 5 years. So it's $1 billion a year. My understanding is that we envision making 300 awards per year, approximately, of all different types. So if you do the math, there are 50 states. Divide that 300 by 50, that means there are an average of 6 awards per state, if that indeed is what happens. I just want to encourage folks to, if you think you have something good, apply, but also have an understanding of the probabilities of getting an award or not. So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Ken, thank you. That's really good context, and I think that is the hope of this application, that if we can do it on behalf of the region, we're more likely to get it. We're more likely to be competitive. I think the comments from Melissa, from Jason, are right on about the challenge is the level of detail. It's hard to do a super comprehensive planning process in 101 or 97 cities and towns in the region. So what's that right balance of making sure we're getting, we're doing really good process, we're doing good planning at the local level to incorporate all of the issues into this, to be able to then create, I think, the conduit to be able to follow up, to actually fund implementation of policies, strategies, programs, and infrastructure through this program. And in addition, this also, I think, helps with the regional planning that then helps us identify good programs, policies, and projects for our other federal resources as well. Are there any other questions? Rebecca, anything final?
Yeah, I would just reiterate that we're planning on sending some materials with a bit more details about the scope and budget and some of kind of the early planning that we've been doing. And also, if you have questions that you'd like to talk offline about, please do reach out to me and we can schedule something with MPO and MAPC staff to discuss that. So again, that the grant is due on September 15th. We'll be back to the board on August 18th with more specifics on the scope and budget and detailed plans of the application.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's go to the next thing on the agenda, which is member items. Are there any members items? Brian Kane.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to bring up something that's been brought up, that I've brought up before and haven't had really an answer to yet, which is moving these meetings from a Zoom to a webinar type of meeting where folks can mute and unmute themselves as they see fit, mostly for the purposes of making motions such as privileged motions that cannot be done right now in a timely manner. I've brought this up before. I was told it would be considered. I haven't heard back yet from our good friends at OTP. So I want to bring it up again and ask that it be considered, and I would respectfully request an answer. Thank you.
Brian, noted, and I will I will definitely bring this up at our next agenda setting meeting with MPO staff and Mass. Any other members items? Not seeing any. Tegan, when is our next meeting? Is it August 4th?
August 4th it is.
Great. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Len Diggins,
So moves.
Tom Bennett.
Second that motion.
Great. Then without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for a great meeting. Stay cool. Take care.
Always cool. Thanks, bye.